All right, today we're talking about how to decide when it's time to walk away from your business, maybe to close up shop, maybe to sell. My guest today is Mike Birdsall. I'll tell you about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of the show, and every week we talk to smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies. You can check out our archives. We've got Netflix, Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, lots of great episodes for you there. And of course, before we get into this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, our company where we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partners. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for your company to launch and run a podcast. We do the strategy, the accountability, full execution. In fact, we invented what some are calling the Wix of B2B podcasting. It's our platform called Podcast Copilot. And, I'm going to be talking to Mike here today. And Mike, I know that you put a premium on the importance of relationships, especially peers, contemporaries, EO forum mates, whatever it is. And I like to, think that, what we're doing here today has brought such value to my life, just having people like you and being able to share your story. And that's why I do it, because I love to hear people's stories. That's the most important thing for me. So anyone out there who's listening and wants to learn more, you can learn about Podcast Copilot at rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. All right. My guest here today is Mike Birdsall. He is a business development and revenue strategist, currently director of business development at DOXA Talent. And he is also the co-founder of Birdsell Interactive, which is an award-winning Bay Area-based interactive design development consulting firm. And he also was the co-founder of DateBox Club, a monthly subscription box that delivered a great date night experience to your door once a month. And he's also been very active and involved in Entrepreneurs Organization, which is how we know each other. And so we're going to get into that story. But Mike, I want to start with hearing about your background as a kid. And you grew up selling, going door to door, selling candy for fundraisers. You sold shoes. You sold car washes. Tell me a little bit about young Mike Birdsall, what he was like.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, John. I was a kid that always had to be active. I was a kid that always had to be moving. And so I think my parents got me out of the house by having me sell candy door to door. So I wasn't bugging them and let me go out and sell and walk around the neighborhood. So I grew up in Walnut Creek, went to high school locally there. And, I was salesman of the year at the car wash.
Nice.
You're like, what the heck are you selling? But I was selling polishes and all sorts of
Yeah. I have a question about that, because by the time you're doing the sale, they've already pulled into the driveway. They've made the decision to buy. It's very rare.
It's a
The
warm
lanes
lead,
are
but
configured, so you really can't turn around and leave at that point.
leads are leads. Some people came in just for gas, but we would upsell them, and I was
Okay.
really good at upselling people. So
Okay. Cool.
and
Cool.
hustling. So yeah, I always like to do that. But
We do notice a difference. There's some car washes where you come in and some personable guy is standing out there with a clipboard and with like a list of things, and maybe you buy the wax, maybe you don't.
yeah, definitely
Yeah.
learned to hustle there. I worked. I'm going to date myself here, but I worked during the odd even times of the Carter administration when you could only get gas at a certain amount of certain day.
That's
Basically.
right. During that period, there was a period of time where there was there's
Yeah.
gas rationing and people had to go every other day or something like that.
Yeah, every other day.
Wow.
And I was in charge of telling those that waited in line for 4 hours that they were on the wrong day. So it
Oh,
was it was
wow.
a big life lesson for
Oh, man. Geez. But would
yeah.
you like some wax?
Yeah, I can sell you wax
So
tomorrow.
it's funny to me, though, that after this background, having been car wash salesperson of the year or whatever it was, you at one point swore you'd never go into sales.
Yeah, I got a degree in marketing from Chico, and I said I'm not doing this because I want to sell. I'm doing this because I like marketing. And so went and worked for a local company that did marketing for them for a while, and then got some harebrained idea that, hey, I really need to understand the business better. And the only way to understand the business is to go out in the field and sell. I got this idea that I needed to go out and really understand the business better and sell it as an area director for them. So I took on 5 offices in the Bay Area, and that I didn't really understand what a recession was until I got out in the field and was told that I had to close three of the offices and let everybody go.
Oh,
Um,
brutal.
and when I did
It
that,
just was really bad timing.
oh, just, well, I think I was kind of a pain in the neck at the office, always going, hey, what's next? What's next? What can I do now? What can I do now? And they're like, okay, great. You want to go out and sell? Go ahead. Kind of like my parents sending me to sell candy door to door.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead, go out and sell.
But your
Uh,
first assignment was closing offices.
yeah. And then I closed
Oof.
offices and then they're like, well, your business is going down. I'm like, well, I don't have any salespeople. And they're like, well, what are you doing all day?
Mm.
I'm like, well, okay, now I need to sell.
So you basically had to switch from a
Yeah,
manager of
there was,
salespeople to trying to gin up sales yourself.
yeah, there was nobody to manage. So they're like, well, go ahead and start selling. So I did 100 calls a day for 3 months. That's
Wow.
calling, that's going to buildings, that's going door to door. Learned a lot about
Yeah.
how to sell.
What were some things you learned about that? I've interviewed a few people that did like door to door sales for years. I don't know how they did it, and
Yeah.
I'm a bit fascinated by people that have the stamina to do that. But what were a few lessons you learned? Like any tips or tricks of the trade?
Well, I think for me, it might maybe a little different. I don't call it stamina. I looked at it and I said, this is really not working. This is really hard. There's no business. Have I given 100%? Have I done 100% of everything I could do? And my answer would be no. I maybe am at 90%. Maybe I'm at 60. Maybe I'm at 98%, but I haven't given 100%. So then I'm like, okay, I need to give 100%. What would that look like? I'm like, well, I need to do 100 sales calls a day for 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, if nothing has changed, I know it's not me. I know I gave 100%.
Hmm.
So for me, it would be literally the tick marks on an index card of how many calls I made. And I
Hmm.
would not stop until I did 100 calls in the day for 3 months.
Mm.
Literally
Wow.
on day 91, I said, here's my notice. I quit because nothing changed. But I knew in my mind. And so that to me, it's just that drive was 100. I'm going to
Mm.
do 100. And then I know it's not me. And
And
so,
and at that, so you found that it was like the economy or
yeah,
something. It was just
it was
you
the
could
economy. It
nothing you
wasn't
could do about it.
me. Nothing to do about it, that kind of stuff.
And so you end up going into doing sales for a printing company. This is in the early 90s. This is actually kind of like a period of time when the internet was starting to bubble up and the World Wide Web was becoming known. I don't know if did it affect printing at that point in time, or was that much later?
Well, so I got the job at the printer. I had a lot to prove. And I took it as a sales job where I had just not been successful. And I'm like, I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot to prove. And
Mm.
so I worked super hard to try to get that chip off my shoulders. Became their number one salesman, 30% of their revenue. But I was working all in the valley. So I was down where the tech was. And I remember walking,
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. One of my
Yeah.
customers was Silicon Graphics down in Mountain View. And I was walking around trying to sell printing, and I looked over and I said, "What's on your computer?" And they're like, "Well, that's a website." I'm like, "Well,
Mm.
what's that?" And it's one of those light bulb moments where you're like, "I want to do that."
Mm.
And so our first web project ever was for Silicon Graphics.
So, all right. So Silicon Graphics was I forget exactly what they did, but they were an early Silicon Valley
That's where
tech
Mark
company.
Andreessen came from, where
Okay.
Netscape came from. They came out of Silicon Graphics. Jim Clark, all those guys from that were in the private equity group.
All right. So Mark Andreessen invented the web browser, Netscape Navigator. You
Correct.
sold a website to the guy, to the company
That he
of the
worked at.
guy
Yeah, he was
that
way out. I
invented the
didn't
web
sell it to
browser.
him specifically, but yeah, yeah. So I
That's
sold
pretty
that.
cool, though.
They were the ones that really started, the path.
It-
And so that was our calling card. We could say, "Hey,
yeah.
we've done a project for Silicon Graphics,"
Yeah, 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 for sure.
kind of thing.
But also, I'm kind of curious. Like, you saw they had a website. You didn't know what a website was, and then you
No,
turned around and you sold them the thing that you just discovered on their computer.
correct. And they paid me $50,000, and they,
I mean, you realize that's pretty phenomenal.
yeah, they they paid me 30,000 cash, 30,000 in a computer, which I had no idea what it was. Um, I
Pretty expensive
remember them
computer.
saying, yes, you can do a website for us. And yes, we agreed to the number. And I came home and told my wife, because we were a husband-wife team, we started the business together. And she was like, what's the website? I'm like, well, let me tell you about it. And I have these printouts because we didn't have an internet connection.
Wow.
We literally designed the first website we ever did with no internet connection.
Wow.
And so I would
Did you design it in HTML? How did you design it?
HTML1, yeah, and
Wow.
an
Wow.
HTML1,
Wow. So this is
uh,
super, super early days. Yeah.
super early days. We had
Yeah.
a 28.8 modem, and then we got a big leap up to an ISDN line, and we're feeling like we were hot stuff. But yeah,
And you start designing, and then after that, you start selling websites. And so and by the way, I think we skipped over something here because this after you'd left the printing company and you started your own?
yeah.
Okay. Tell us why you left the printing company.
I left the printing company for a couple of well, one the real reason is they messed with my comp plan. I was their number one sales guy doing 30% of their revenue, and they decided that the commission checks that they were writing for me were too high. And I kept telling them, I only get 8%. You get
Mm-hmm.
the other 92. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure why you're angry with me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
making a lot of money and you're making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Once they started messing with my comp plan, I'm like, I want to have more control.
Mm-hmm.
I want to control my destiny. So then that sort of was the impetus of
Yeah.
going there.
And so your wife was basically was she like the production, you were the sales when you started up the
Yeah, she
company?
was the design and creative, and I was the sales and operations side of things.
Okay.
Super clear lines of division.
Yeah. Okay, so we got that. So Birdsall Designs was the initial name of the company. And you're selling websites. Once you figured out what a website was, you started to turn around and start selling them. Any other interesting Silicon Valley companies in that era that you worked with?
Oh, I mean, we were, Sony, Adobe, HP, we had done work for British Airways. We had some really, really great customers. And just being around Kleiner Perkins, they
Mm-hmm.
were the number one private,
VC firm.
VC
Mm-hmm.
firm that was investing in all these companies. So it was just, it was a fun time. People were coming to us, grad students from Stanford coming to us with an idea on a website, and we were just seeing all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it
Any
was
other memorable ones there? Any other, famous iconic entrepreneurs that you crossed paths
E-Trade.
with?
We did E-Trade,
Okay.
first website there. Kleiner Perkins' first
That's
website.
crazy because you think about like billions and trillions of dollars probably goes through that website.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we decided we weren't going to take equity on stuff. We didn't want, we were offered board seats. We were offered all sorts of stuff in lieu of cash,
Do you
and we're
regret
like,
that?
no, not at all.
Why?
Well, our business was designing websites. My business wasn't selling stock.
Yeah.
So I had no control over how well E-Trade did or how well any of these
I
other
mean, you'd
companies.
probably have 30,000 shares in pets.com right now if you'd made the other
Yeah,
decision, I guess. Yeah.
right. And so we'd be, in my opinion, we'd be out of business. Cash
Yeah.
is king. So, we would take some pieces in equity if that was allowed, but no, we always wanted our,
Yeah.
money up front.
Now you also developed an app called Fan Connects, which you sold to the San Francisco Giants and the A's, other professional sports teams. What was that? This is in early days of the apps, right?
This was the early days. It was 2004. The Giants had San Francisco
That's
Giants.
actually really before apps because apps didn't come on really
Well, the
until
iPhone
after the
came out in
iPhone, which is
'07.
2007.
Yeah. So we were building, which was the hard part to sell because everybody's like, the Wi-Fi network. Why do I
Yeah.
need a Wi-Fi network? But the Giants were AT&T Park at that point. And so AT&T put in a Wi-Fi network. And so
Mm.
they were trying to figure out what can we do with that and how do we build it. So my idea was to enhance the fan experience when they were in venue and
Hmm.
only allow them to get certain content if they were in their seats. So we were doing instant replay. There was food
Oh,
ordering that you could do. There were
is this pre-iPhone then, or
the
was it?
iPhone,
It
yeah. So
was
you're
okay.
you're talking about your Trio, or you're talking about some of the Palm Pilots, some of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
things.
whatever they made back
Yeah.
then.
Now, obviously,
N
when the iPhone came out, it just blew that up, and it was great.
Yeah,
But
do you recall? Was there a moment, kind of like when you saw that first website at Silicon Graphics? Was there a moment when you saw the iPhone came out where you were like, "Oh my God, this is going to explode"?
yeah, a couple. I mean, the wow moment of Silicon Graphics was I need to be part of this. The wow moment of the Giants were like, okay, now we've removed one of the roadblocks. in this application was great. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi networks weren't up to speed at that point. We've come a long way. That
Hmm.
was seven,
Yeah, it's sluggish back then. Yeah.
really brutal, and how
Yeah.
many people were on each Wi-Fi, device and all that access
Yeah.
point, all that kind of stuff.
I
So
mean, seeing a replay seconds, in 2004 or five, seeing a replay on your phone, like I'm sure it was not very quick. They were very high resolution.
yeah, it was fun though. It was kind of novel, and
Yeah.
I've been to 10 opening days for the San Francisco Giants, and I've only seen two games.
Oh,
Two
because you're behind the scenes.
because I'm behind the scenes in the living room somewhere. Yeah,
That's not fun.
it was fun.
And so, but that app didn't exactly end too well, unfortunately. Tell us the story.
No, for good or bad, the Giants went to the World Series in 2010. My app was running there. Major League Baseball owns the World Series, not the local teams. And so when they came in and sort of planted their stuff and started working, they saw what was going on. They saw the people on devices using my app, and they decided that that was something that they should be doing.
Mm.
So I remember they called me and asked me to spell the last name and the company name, and then I got a cease and desist about a week later.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
So
jeez.
yeah, I was trying to be friendly and say, hey, let me help you and let's work together and all that kind of stuff. But they at that point, they were going to do it themselves. So
That's too bad because, sometimes these stories end with, "Oh, we'll just acquire you. We'll buy your technology. We'll
right.
turn it into our own." But instead, they're just like, "Well, we're just going to throw our weight around here."
And they could, they had
Yeah.
the teams and they had the funds and the revenue, and so yeah, I mean, I still have great friends in sports all over. So
Yeah, yeah. We glossed over this, but you're running Birdsell Designs or Birdsell Interactive in around the time of when 9/11 happened in 2001, and that had a big impact on your business. Talk a little bit about that.
yeah,
That and the dot-com meltdown.
yeah, that it kind of came hand in hand in our opinion. Yeah, we were at 25 people. I don't know, maybe 4 million in revenue, doing great. 9/11 happened, all business dried up for us. I mean, I think zero business, everything dried up for us. We had no debt, we had cash in the bank, we had a full business line available to us. And, in my opinion, made the fatal mistake of saying it won't last that long, and we love all of our people, so we're just going to hang on.
Mm,
And so, I think after the end of 6 months, we were out of cash, we were in debt, and we started layoffs at that point.
mm,
Way too late. So I'm a firm believer in quickly and hard. And so at the end of that, we laid off all but six.
mm,
And then we came in and said, hey, you six, we can only pay you 50% of what we're paying you now.
mm,
And here are the numbers. We were super transparent. Here are the numbers. They knew they weren't working on any project. And then a month later, we came back and said, we need to cut your salary another 50%.
oh,
And no one left. Now, would they have gone somewhere else or could have? I don't know, but nobody
well,
left.
probably no one's hiring at that
No
point,
one's
right?
hired. But we're
Yeah,
still all friends.
yeah.
We still are in contact with those six, even 20 years later. So
And did things slowly start to turn around after that?
they did. They turned around, but we were in debt. We had felt kind of burned. We felt like we already built it. We already did it. We were already successful with it. My wife on the creative side was like, I've done this. I've done 2,000 websites. I've seen websites. This isn't fun anymore,
Yeah.
kind
It's
of
hard to
thing.
get inspired when that changes when that
Yeah, really hard to
dramatically.
be
Yeah.
inspired with that. So, she started to wane and say, I just, we need to do something else. We need to do something else. I was still having success going out and selling
Hmm.
people that wanted it, but the average price of a website dropped substantially.
Mm.
Introduction to WordPress and all those types of tools, Wix
Yeah.
and all those types of tools really brought down the pricing of websites because people could do more of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's kind of a technology curve with that sort of thing. Um, and you actually had a pivotal dinner with a group of your old forum. You had dinner at one of the members' houses, which really helped you to think about what you wanted to do next. Tell us about that.
Well, we had been struggling, Maureen and I, about, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do next? She is an idea person, so she'd come up with a whole bunch of ideas. I'm the no person because I would look at it and go, that's not a good idea. No, we can't, there's no way we can make money at that. So we had a couple of different ideas. Uh, my old forum got together, the guys that were all together back in, I joined EO in '07. And so we got together at Gabe's house in San Francisco. We went around and said, give me an update. What are you doing? How are things going? Everybody was super positive till it got to me. And I'm like, we're still struggling. We're still trying to figure out what we want to do. We're not happy with doing websites anymore. We know we need to pivot. And, same old, same old. And I had carpooled with one of the guys, Darren, and we got in the car and Darren like, it was like, dude, you say the same thing every time you give an update. Just pick something. Doesn't matter if it's wrong. Just pick something. Do something different.
Hmm.
So at that point, I went home and said, okay, here's the 5 ideas we have on the table. Let's just start running with this one.
And so and actually, this was a different model because you're kind of doing B2B sales before, and DateBox Club ultimately was more of a B2C play, right?
Yeah,
So was that a
almost
bit,
direct to consumer,
so
D2C.
kind of a bit of a pivot for you?
Yeah, we had felt like we knew how to build websites. And so, hey, we can build websites. Why don't we build one for us? And why don't we get something that's recurring so we don't have to constantly hunt?
Yeah,
That was the logic. I think that logic ended up proving to be not right or incorrect.
because there's still attrition.
There's still attrition. It's a
Yeah.
whole different way of selling.
Hmm.
Uh, the consumer is way different than a business
Hmm.
customer. But we decided, okay, let's do it. Let's make a subscription box. And what could we make? And we picked date night for couples.
Hmm. Hmm. And how was the first few years of getting that off the ground?
So we were still doing some websites and kind of straddling the fence, some
Hmm.
websites and then trying to build.
Hmm.
We had 2 orders the first month, thanks to my sister-in-law and a good friend of mine. And then we had 100% renewal rate because they also got a box the next month. And then we sort of, milestones of 100 and 200 and 500, but it was slow
Hmm.
and difficult. And we were coming up with date nights every month. So that was difficult. How we're going to buy, that was difficult.
And
Uh,
I guess if you have a customer who stays for years and years, then you got to keep on coming up with new themes and ideas, right?
Yeah, we had decided at that point we were going to come up with new themes and ideas every month. So they were
Mm.
really month based. So February, Valentine's, March, spring, April, Easter, May, Mother's Day. We were sort of planning that out. We got to a point as we grew and realized that that was very difficult to sustain
Mm.
because we had a lot of extra product,
Mm.
or we didn't have enough product because we had not gotten the estimates right on what we thought we were going to sell.
And
Uh,
then you're stuck with a bunch of Easter eggs, and you're like, crap, we can't send these in
right.
May. Yeah.
And I can't send them next year because people are around. They got them last year. So I've
Yeah.
got to wait 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
so
eventually, did you move to a model of like every new person would get the month one box, then the
right.
month two box? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
finally went to that. That was a great decision, but that was probably the decision that really pivoted our company in a whole different direction, really, very heavily.
How
So,
so?
well, Maureen is creative. Maureen loves to do, build websites and create things. And so she was creating all the books and all the games and all the crafts and all that kind of stuff and coming up with what the date night was when you sat down. When we went to box 1 through 12, there was no need to be creative. It was really
Yeah.
just a reorder point. And
Yeah.
so she was like, well, what am I doing now? I'm
Yeah.
not doing this now. So yeah.
She
So
got more bored again.
yeah, got
Yeah.
yeah.
And tell me about not after 2020, after COVID hit. How did that affect the business?
COVID was great. We were doing okay in 19. We're like, okay, this is starting to pick up and we can stop doing websites. So we stopped our last website was in 2019. COVID hit, really picked up. 2021 was just going nuts. We were fulfilling at our house every month. I think our high water mark was 5,000 boxes a month. We did that all out of our house.
That's crazy.
My living room was full. My dining room was full. My
That's
driveway
crazy.
was full. We had a pallet mover that I was moving pallets around in the driveway.
Are
Um,
neighbors like reporting you? I mean,
we would go drop candy and we would do all sorts of stuff to
be
kind of
nice.
keep track. But it was tough. We were doing 20,000 steps a day around tables in my house and multiple days. And we would have crews come in, people we found on Nextdoor that would come in and, got to know. And
And during COVID, like people wearing masks to do
no
this stuff.
masks we were
Oh,
trying to do outside.
oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
it was a lot of logistics. Uh,
Yeah. Now, I've interviewed a lot of companies that have a big growth spurt like this, and then they overcommit. They lock themselves into big real estate or something like that, or hire too much or something like that. You'd been through other boom and bust cycles before. So, how did you react to that? And looking back on it now, were there any overcommitments?
oh, that's a funny question. I think hope plus ego equals entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We thought that we were finally doing it. We thought that we were finally, on the rise. 5,000 boxes a month at, $40 a box is a pretty good number monthly. And so we were cranking. Supply chain was an issue there too. So there was a product that we had ordered from China that sat at the port of Long Beach for a year. And
Mm,
so it made it really hard to try to plan what we were going to ship out. And,
mm.
it really affected the cash flow. So yeah, we definitely over ordered. We definitely overbought based on supply chain issues. Ultimately, that made kind of our downfall because it was just the cash flow was just really difficult. We had debt to service, credit cards to service based on all the products that we had bought. And so it made it really hard. So yeah, I've got a lot of different products in a warehouse still.
Really? Wow. And so you get to the point where, as we teased at the beginning of this episode, you have to make this decision about where do we do going forward? Do we sell? Do we close up shop? Take me through that decision making matrix for you.
Yeah, I think, it's for me, it's like, well, have I given 100%? Can I do more? So no, I haven't given 100%. Let me try to do more. Let me try to learn e-marketing. Let me try to figure out, ads. Let me try to figure out Instagram. Let me try to do that.
Yeah.
Um, Maureen had gotten to a point where she's like, well, you don't really need me. And the revenue is going down in the business. So I'm going to go do my own thing. So she left and got a job. So here I am running a relationship business by myself. We had also not only ordered a whole bunch of product, we brought it to a fulfillment center. And so there were tons of costs with that fulfillment center. So I was able to bring that back.
Was
Uh,
that on the East Coast, if I remember
that was
correctly?
in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. So you have this fulfillment center that's three-quarters of the way across the country, far from you.
Right. It seemed like a great idea when we were scaling and moving and, had the cash. But when the numbers started to drop, there were too many fixed costs that
Mm,
began to really pinch the cash flow. So yeah, so I think the whole concept was I realized at some point that I didn't have the skill sets to be able to do the direct consumer. Ultimately, a subscription box is an acquisition business. People are really going to stay on for 3 months or 6 months.
hmm
Some will stay on for 12, maybe longer, but not many. It's really a pure acquisition.
mm,
And I realized I couldn't learn and did not have the skill set in order to, get all that going on. So it was a hard decision to what do we do? Shut it down? What do we do? Can we tighten it up? Can I outlast it? And so with EO, you're in a forum. I was in a forum with 10 other people, and I brought that to the forum group and said, transparently, here's my QuickBooks file. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Do I even have a business? Can you really dig into my numbers and tell me what's going on? And the time that, Dave Richmond and Sean Barr and the other people in there helped me really understand my numbers. You've heard the moniker, hey, you need to understand your numbers. You need to know your numbers. I thought I did
mm,
until I didn't. And then I'm like,
mm,
okay, I really need to know. Here's the cash flow. Here's why you're not making money. And the only way to correct that was to either shut it down or see if I could sell it.
mm, mm.
And it was harsh, but then once I made the decision, I understood and made the decision, it was fine.
And as a guy who has a lot of experience with business development and sales, was it hard to sell your own business?
No, in retrospect, it was, the hardest part was to come to the decision to sell it. To me, that was the hardest part. It's
Because
ego. It's I can do it. I can work harder.
I can get through this.
I can get through this. I've had three other businesses. I've done it before.
Hmm.
And so I got the point where I'm like, well, Mike, first of all, you don't really have the skill set to do this. Second of all, you're good at direct sales. I'm good at picking up the phone. I'm good at networking. I'm good at hunting. I'm a hunter. I'm a sales
Yeah.
hunter.
Yeah.
And this business did not use my skill set. It did not use my superpower.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's the wrong business for me. It's not
Yeah.
going to ever make me happy.
Yeah.
All I'm doing it for is the revenue, and that's not there.
Right.
So it's time to move. So to
And it
me,
must be even more hard by the fact that a couple of years earlier it was doing much bigger numbers. So you're
yeah,
like counting what you could sell it for at that point, and to think, oh man, I wish I'd sold it a couple of years earlier.
yeah. Well, a couple years earlier, it wasn't on the table because we're like, no, no, this is going great.
Yeah, no one wants to sell then,
Look at
right?
us. Look at us.
No, of course.
So once we made the decision to go, yeah, we're going to sell it, then the rest of it actually went pretty easy.
Hmm.
We listed it on a marketplace. We had a couple of different people interested, went down the path of doing that,
Hmm.
and it officially sold in October. So,
Got it.
um,
And talk to me about now you are doing business development for DOXA Talent. Talk about those relationships, how you developed those, because I know came through your EO connections, and then also what Red Cloud is.
yeah, Red Cloud was a friend of mine, old EO guy as well. Needed some help with biz dev. I was trying to supplement revenue because revenue was down at DateBox, and so he gave me a chance to try to sell a new product for him. So that was great. Once I connected with Doxa, that had to end because now I'm full time with Doxa. Doxa is an offshore nearshore talent solution company, right? They
So
do.
in a sense, you're going back to your roots because that was what you were doing when you were doing
Yeah, it's
the
funny.
marketing and
It's
everything,
very
right?
funny. Yeah, I'm going
Yeah,
back. My first job was at a employment agency.
yeah,
Now I'm back to technically an employment agency, but
yeah,
started by two EO people that I just have adored for years, Dave
yeah.
Nelson,
Michael
Michael
and
Ross.
David, both great guys. Yeah.
Excellent guys. And so if I was to work anywhere, I would definitely want to work for those two. When Maureen left DateBox, she became Dox's global marketing director.
Hmm.
And I was jealous, like, hey, gosh, you're working for these two guys that are so awesome.
Yeah.
Really great company. So now I'm at Doxa. Also, don't lose the visual of now Maureen and I are back working together
Yeah.
uh, because I've been married 37 years and we've been working together 34 of the
Wow.
37. So it was hard when she left and we weren't working together anymore. So now we're back to working together at the same company. So it's kind of serendipitous
Yeah.
in that sense. But yeah, I'm having a great time. In my opinion, nothing's easier to sell when I believe in Doxa. I believe in their mission and their culture and what they're doing for people. And I think it's a great business and I'm just having a great time selling it. So
You know, you were with a staffing firm during two different downturns last year and in the early 90s. In one instance, it ended really poorly.
right.
And now, by all, signs, what I can see as an outsider, companies like Doxa Talent are growing by leaps and bounds.
Right. Yeah,
How is now different?
this is going to end up better. Well, I think it's better now because the Doxa is run by very smart people who are very focused on where they're going and they've got a plan and they're executing on the plan. I'm just feel very honored to be part of it and be kind of attached to it and have the opportunity to be attached to it. So for me to, it's the same kind of feeling I got when I was selling web design. I'd go out and they'd go, well, how do you guarantee this is going to be great? And how do you guarantee this is going to get done on time? I'm like, well, because my wife's doing it and I know that she's going to get it done and I know how talented she is. It was an easy sell.
Yeah.
This is also an easy sell. Dave and Michael are running the business and I know it's done right. And so I'm not selling. I'm, I'm informing, I'm consulting, I'm letting you know that there's an opportunity out here. I'm letting you know that there's a great company out here.
Yeah.
You decide what you want to do with it. But I'm back to my 100 calls a day, not quite 100 calls a day, but I'm ramping up to that.
And I know every company's kind of different in terms of its embrace or lack of embrace of global talent, if you will. And it's been a big movement. A lot of companies have been embracing global talent. We certainly have with our company. We
Yeah.
find amazing people regardless of where they were born in the world.
Right.
It's interesting because you were selling websites at a time when people didn't understand the value of it. And now there are some companies that don't understand the value of like, why would I not hire I want someone down the hallway from me. Why would I hire someone that's on the other side of the globe? And how would I do that? And so where are companies in terms of their understanding of this, resource or this way of doing business, especially compared to when you were selling websites?
Well, I think it's different because of the pandemic. I think most people get remote work. And so remote work could be, somebody in San Francisco or somebody in Manila, right? It doesn't really necessarily matter where there are. Talent is talent. Secondly, it's more about explaining why DOXA versus someone else and what DOXA is doing that's different than other people. We're a remote first company. We don't believe in the call centers and all that kind of stuff. We want people to stay where they're at. And we also pay, top dollar for people. So our retention rate is 88%.
Mm-hmm.
So we're finding people that are learning and working singly for you and doing a great job for you. And the cost savings is the talent is in other parts of the world than it is in the US. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It's just, it's something that people should look at. So it's easy to do. I would rather talk to people that, are doing it a little bit, and let's talk about how we can optimize it. Because they already understand.
They already get it. Yeah. Yeah. Mike, this has been great. I want to wrap up with my last question, which is my gratitude question. I'm a big fan of practicing gratitude, and I'm also a big fan of giving my guests a little bit of space and opportunity to thank some people that have been with them on that journey. And you mentioned a few names along the way, David and Michael from DOXA Talent, of course, Dave Richmond, Sean Barr, both of whom I know are amazing entrepreneurs. Anyone else you would want to acknowledge or thank for helping you?
Yeah, I think that for me, when the stuff hit the fan, right, you kind of reach out to your network, and what I find is that there are 70% of your network goes, oh, bummer, right? 29% of your network goes, hey, let me know how I can help you. And then there's that 1% that go, here's what I'm going to do for you. Let me give you something. Let me help you out. So Red Cloud, Mike Lexon, Red Cloud, who allowed me to help him do that. My forum, who literally looked at my books, no judgment, and decided to do that. TJ Van Voorhis has been there. But finding those gems, those 1% people, to me is like just eye-opening and just the gift that we need to hold on to when we find them.
For sure. Definitely. Mike, this has been great. Thank you for sharing your stories. And where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, learn more about DOXA Talent?
Me at LinkedIn. So easy to find on LinkedIn, or doxatalent.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.